Hi, shalom everyone. Yaela Rosenfeld here, again from Der Nister in downtown LA. Today is March 7th, 2025. It is Zayin Be'adar Tafshin Pei Hey, and the Torah portion is Tetzaveh. Let's begin, let's dive in. All right, fashion is tyrannical and utopian at the same time. It imposes a norm which it claims is freedom. This quote belongs to the French philosopher Roland Barthes. He was born in 1915 and died in 1980. And today we're going to explore fashion with Roland Barthes. He actually has a book that he published in 1967 called The Fashion System. And why are we talking about fashion today? Because of our Torah portion, Tetzaveh. So Tetzaveh, our portion, has an entire chapter in it that is 43 verses, all describing the clothing that the priests were to wear in the tabernacle. 43 verses. And they describe the little decorations and the artifacts and the fabric and the colors. Now, this is very, very curious. If you think about it, the creation of the universe, which starts in Genesis, verse number 1 in Genesis, Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. In the beginning, God created heaven and earth. It's one verse to describe the creation of the universe, and 43 verses to describe clothing. Now, one must ask, how come clothing gets so much real estate in the Torah? Well, Maimonides, the Rambam, the medieval genius and a Jewish philosopher, wrote in his book, Guide for the Perplexed, that the Torah was not meant to explain the secrets of the universe. In fact, he wrote Guide for the Perplexed exactly for schooled people of his time, people who were versed in the science of his time, again, medieval science, who then read the Torah and were embarrassed by the discrepancies and the misaccuracies in the description of the creation of the universe, right? Now, of course, we're talking about Aristotelian science in medieval time, but still, it's not God created the world in 6 days. So that embarrassment is part of what Guide for the Perplexed was meant to solve. Now, let me read a segment from a Guide for the Perplexed when Maimonides talks about it. It comes from the second part, from volume 2. Know that our shunning the affirmation of the eternity of the world is not due to a text figuring in the Torah, according to which the world has been produced in time. For the text indicating that the world has been produced in time are not more numerous than those indicating that God is a body, nor are the gates of interpretation shut before us or impossible for us in this matter. So this is really interesting. So for example, part of the philosophy in Guide for the Perplexed is this verse of creating the universe implies time. In the beginning, Bereshit, God created the universe, right? But according to Maimonides, how can God create the universe in the beginning if before the creation there was no time and space? So this is a part of how Maimonides explains that the Torah was not meant to describe creation. And following Maimonides, of course, there's Yeshayahu Leibovich, and those of you who know me or the columns I write, I bring him a lot. I'm a big, big fan. Yeshayahu Leibovich, an Israeli philosopher who passed away in 1994. He went even further to always yell in his lectures that the Torah was not a history book, nor it was a textbook in physics. Okay, so what it means is that, again, Leibovich meant to say that whoever relies on the Torah to explain nature is an idiot. So then, what is the Torah's role if it was not to explain nature or be a history book, right? So the Torah's role, according to Rambam, according to Maimonides, and also according to Leibovich, is one, to give a set of instructions of how a human being should stand in front of their creator. Meaning, how can human beings implement a moral code to hold their society together? That is the role of the Torah. כל המצוות כולן עניינן תיקון החברה. All of the mitzvot, the commandments, are there, this is Maimonides, by the way, to fix society. And that brings us back to Roland Barthes. So Roland Barthes is associated with a genre in philosophy, or a way of thinking in philosophy, that is known as structuralism. And this is a genre that developed during the 20th century, and it comes from the field of linguistics. Specifically associated with it was a Swiss linguist, Ferdinand de Saussure. And Saussure basically dissected language to create a system of what is called semiotics. What are semiotics? These are, simply put, signs. Okay, signs that could be words or images to represent things in reality. What Saussure noticed, that a signifier, meaning a word or an image, only has meaning in relation to what it is not, or in relations to other signifiers in a certain structure. And let me explain it. So for example, this is a pen, okay? So the word pen, P-E-N, represents this, the pen. So the only way that the signifier pen has a meaning is because it is not a pencil. And we understand that it is a pen because it's not a pencil, nor a paintbrush, nor a charcoal, right? So what he noticed, that all the signifiers basically make up one structure that has to be sensible, all right? And what does he mean by sensible? If you think about language, there are, in any given language, millions of words. But if you randomly pick those words and put them in a jumble together, they would mean nothing, right? The only thing that gives meaning to a sentence is the grammatic structure that it holds. Without that structure, that sentence would have no meaning, right? So take any sentence. For example, today's common term for it would be, right? If you took all the words that I said right now and jumbled them, they would mean absolutely nothing. Now, this might seem as a simple concept, but if you then take this and apply it to fields outside of linguistics, you get something really profound. And that's something we call nowadays social construct. And this is something that I know many of you can definitely understand. And so Barthes was very groundbreaking in that. What today is very obvious to us. Today we can spot it, we can see and identify social constructs, but his work in the 50s was pretty groundbreaking. And his groundbreaking work was called Mythologies. So it's basically a collection of 53 short essays, the essays that were written between 1954 and 1956. And what Barthes did is that he used the system of Saussure to dissect popular culture. Now, this is actually really simple, and I will give you an example. So, in one of his essays, he tackled soap. Yes, just something that is as simple as soap. And what he meant to show us, okay, is that how popular culture, okay, creates mythologies in order to perpetuate a certain social structure. Okay, so let's take soap and see what he does with it. So in an advertising for soap, there's a talk of something that is deep and airy. Okay, deep and airy. So here we are sold the mythology of depth. Okay, it's something deep and airy that can govern the molecular order of material without damaging its inner structure or its heart. Okay, so let's dissect it according to semiotics. So what do we have here? We have that the detergent, right, the soap itself is the signifier, is the word, and the signified, the concept that it represents is purity or depth. So then, if you take detergent plus the signified purity and depth, what you get a moral victory over dirt. And that is the mythology that comes out of it. Okay, I'll give you another soap example just to make it even clearer. So, for example, foam, the trait of foam in soap. Okay, so foam isn't just functional; it's luxury. It's luxurious. It's a surplus. Why? Because in order to cleanse, people used materials like bleach, right? That have kind of like burning traits that are aggressive, right? But what if you could cleanse something without burning it? What if you could use foam? And that has the essence of luxury. So let's take the system, right? Foam is the signifier, is the actual word. And the signified, right, the concept that it represents is luxury or euphoria. So if you take foam plus luxury, what do you get? A domesticated power akin to a celebrity's charisma. Now, how did he get from here to there, right? With using foam, right? The domesticated woman can feel like she is Greta Garbo. And this is actually something that Barthes is saying it. Can feel that even by cleaning, she engages in the luxurious foam that represents to her celebrity. So this is just an example from Barthes' mythology. And then Barthes explained that what mythologies do, and this is very, very important also for our times, is that they turn history into nature. Basically, they take a mythology that was maybe artificially created, like the examples that I have showed you, and presents it as if it's a natural thing and has always been so. And this is the process that is happening. So then, following mythology, about a decade later, he wrote the fashion system, where he actually tackled fashion using this system. So, and if you remember the quote from the beginning, if fashion is tyrannical and utopian at the same time, you get the tyranny with sentences like, every woman needs, or the little black dress is a must, right? So that's the tyranny. But what it does, it also sells you the mythology of freedom, of modernity, and of individuality. The flowing skirt, right? The bold color, the jacket that gives you wings, right? So all of these things are tackled in the fashion system. Now, I know that for us today, we see it. We see it in commercials. And we feel that we can spot it very well, but think of how groundbreaking it was when it was written. And I want to give another example that has to do with fashion and mythologies. So when I grew up, everybody had a Che Guevara t-shirt, right? And if you remember it, or if you have seen it, just look it up, the Che Guevara t-shirt. And that was basically a way to seem rebellious and youthful and very cool. And I'm sure that back then, if you went to my high school and asked the kids who were wearing this t-shirt, so who was this guy? What can you tell me about this guy? Most of them would not know too much, or will not have too much to say. And forget the fact that Guevara was not only the rebellious cool hero, but also some would say committed crimes and mass executions without trials, etc., etc. The irony of it all is that those kids were actually, by buying the Che Guevara t-shirts, were serving the system that Che Guevara was passionately fighting against, and that is capitalism. And this is an example of how tricky or hard sometimes it is to identify a mythology in the making, right? The kids feel like they rebel, that they stand out, that they do something to maybe put a crack in the system, but by buying it are basically perpetuating it and serving it. So 43 verses to describe clothes. And now we understand why. Because us as a community, as the Jewish people, we exist here also thanks to our mythologies that basically form the structure of who we are as a community of the Jewish people. And in order for that community and this people to develop, the mythology was much, much, much more needed than to give us an accurate account of how we all got here. And so in conclusion, I can only say that mythologies are a part of our lives. They're inevitable. Sometimes they are being used to create wonderful things. But most of the times we can be manipulated by them. And we should all constantly train ourselves to recognize those manipulations. So I'm wishing you Shabbat Shalom, Chaverim, and we'll see you next time.